7 signs an elderly person may be in their final year. Subtle warnings. You must know before too late. Have you ever looked at someone you love and felt, deep in your heart, that something was changing, but you could not quite explain it? Maybe it was the way their clothes seemed to hang a little looser, the way they smiled less often, or how their voice grew softer, as if they were speaking from somewhere far away. Most people believe that when an elderly loved one passes, it happens suddenly. One night they are here, and the next they are not. But the truth is, the body almost always whispers its goodbyes long before the final day comes. These whispers are subtle, easy to miss. They are not the loud alarms we expect, but quiet shifts in how they move, how they breathe, how they connect with the world. By the time families recognize these signs, it is often too late. Too late to prepare, too late to say the things that matter most, too late to create the moments that become memories. But it does not have to be that way. Today, I want to walk you through 7 subtle but powerful signs that often appear in the final year of an elderly person's life. Some may be physical, some emotional, some so gentle they are easy to brush aside. Yet knowing these signs early, seeing them for what they truly are, gives you an extraordinary gift, the chance to walk beside your loved one with greater tenderness, greater presence, and most importantly, greater peace. So, if someone close to you has changed in ways you cannot explain, I invite you to stay with me until the end. Because understanding these signs is not about fearing death. It is about embracing life and making every remaining moment as full of love, dignity, and grace as possible. Let us begin. Sign 1. The body grows smaller. Unexplained weight and appetite loss. Have you ever noticed an elderly loved one, someone who once had hearty meals and a steady appetite, begin to push their plate away half-finished or politely say, "I am not hungry," more and more often? It often starts so quietly, you barely notice it at first. Maybe their belt tightens a notch. Maybe you find yourself shopping for smaller clothes without thinking much about it. Maybe you simply chalk it up to getting older. But when weight loss happens without trying, when the body begins to shrink little by little, it is more than just aging. It is often the body's first way of letting go. You see, our bodies are beautifully designed machines. But as life nears its final chapters, the systems that once worked so tirelessly, digestion, absorption, metabolism, begin to slow down. Even when food is available, the body no longer processes it the same way. Muscles quietly waste away. The lining of the stomach thins. The signals that once shouted, "I am hungry," grow faint, like a song drifting off into the distance. And it is not just about muscles or appearance. As weight falls, strength falls too. With it comes greater risk. Falls, fractures, infections. Even simple tasks like standing from a chair can become monumental. Some families, out of love, try to coax their elders to eat more. They bring favorite dishes. They offer protein shakes. They pile plates high with nourishing food. Sometimes it helps, for a little while. But often, the body resists, not out of stubbornness, but because it knows something we have not yet accepted. It is preparing to rest. When appetite fades, when weight falls away, it is the body's way of shifting energy from growing and maintaining to simply being. One woman I knew, Mary, a vibrant, laughing grandmother of 6, began losing weight slowly one winter. At first, it was almost unnoticeable. A little less pie at Thanksgiving, a smaller helping of stew at Christmas. By spring, her arms looked more delicate, her steps lighter, almost airy. Her daughter, worried, begged her to eat more. But Mary just smiled gently and said, "I am full. I have had enough." And in a way, she had. When you notice someone you love growing smaller before your eyes, do not rush to fix it. Instead, lean in. Offer easy, comforting foods they enjoy. Keep them hydrated. Focus less on calories and more on comfort. Most importantly, cherish the time. Because the body, in its quiet wisdom, is telling a story. A story not of loss, but of a life nearing completion. A soul preparing for peace. Now, let us move to another whisper the body sends. One that sleep alone cannot heal. Sign 2. A tiredness that sleep cannot heal. There is a kind of tiredness that no amount of rest can mend. It is deeper than a long day's work, stronger than the weariness after a restless night. It is the body's way of conserving what little energy remains, of whispering, "I am saving my strength for what matters most." At first, it may look like napping a little more during the day. Then, it becomes harder to get out of bed in the morning. Eventually, even simple tasks, walking across the living room, buttoning a shirt, holding a short conversation, feel like running a marathon. This fatigue is not laziness. It is not something to be pushed through or fought off. It is a profound physical transition, a signal that the body is prioritizing survival at its core, saving its limited energy for breathing, for heartbeat, for being. You may notice your loved ones sitting quietly for long stretches, eyes half closed, but not fully asleep. You may find them withdrawing from conversations, not because they are disinterested, but because even speaking feels too heavy. Sometimes it feels sudden. One day they seem energetic. The next they are so tired, they barely lift their head. Other times, it unfolds gradually, like a slow dimming of the lights. I remember a gentleman named George, an old carpenter who once built houses with his bare hands. In his final year, he would sit on the porch, hammer in his lap, too tired to lift it. He would smile when spoken to, but more often, he would simply close his eyes, as if dreaming of all the homes he had built, all the lives he had touched. One afternoon, his daughter asked him if he was feeling okay. George simply said, "I am just resting my way home." That kind of fatigue cannot be fought. It must be honored. Trying to push an exhausted body into movement it no longer wants, no longer needs, can lead to frustration, falls, and unnecessary suffering. Instead, create a rhythm that honors their pace. Offer shorter conversations. Simplify routines. Allow space for naps without guilt. Understand that what they need most now is not stimulation, not motivation, but presence. Quiet companionship. A hand held gently in silence. Because sometimes the greatest act of love we can offer is simply to slow down alongside them. As we recognize this profound tiredness, we also begin to notice something else. A subtle shift not just in the body, but in the mind and in the heart. And that brings us to the next gentle sign the body sends. When familiar faces begin to fade from memory. Sign 3. When familiar faces become strangers, it is one of the most heartbreaking changes to witness. The moment when someone you love looks at you, and for just a flicker of a second, you can see in their eyes. They are not sure who you are. At first it might be little things. They forget a conversation you just had. They call you by the wrong name, perhaps mistaking you for a brother, a sister, a childhood friend. You tell yourself, it's just normal aging. Everyone forgets sometimes, and often that is true. But when disorientation deepens, when someone begins to lose track not just of words, but of the people, the places, the very anchors of their life, it is often a sign that their mind is beginning to gently untether from this world. You see, the brain is like the heart. It too needs oxygen, nourishment, energy. As the body's systems slow down, the brain receives less of what it needs. And so memories, those beautiful, precious memories, begin to slip away, like pages of a well-loved book carried off by the wind. There will be moments of clarity, moments when they seem just like their old self, laughing at a joke, remembering an old song, squeezing your hand tight. And then, like a cloud passing over the sun, the light dims again. I once sat with a woman named Eleanor, a retired schoolteacher who could once recall every student's name, even decades later. In her final months, she often mistook her daughter for her own sister. She would smile warmly, reach out a frail hand and say, "Did you finish your homework yet?" At first, her daughter would correct her, gently, lovingly. But over time, she learned not to fight it. She would simply answer, "Almost, Mama," and then sit by her side, letting Eleanor drift into the warm, safe memories of a life well lived. It is natural to feel grief during these moments. It feels like losing someone twice, once as their mind fades, and again when their body eventually follows. But remember, even when names are forgotten, even when words stumble and fall away, love remains. They may not remember your name, but they can feel your presence. They can sense kindness, patience, the safety you bring. They can feel the warmth of your touch, the comfort of your voice. When familiar faces begin to blur, your greatest gift is not reminding them who you are. It is reminding them they are loved in ways that go far deeper than memory. And as the mind begins to retreat, another battle often begins quietly within the body, a battle against infections, injuries, and wounds that no longer heal as they once did. Let us move now to this next silent but crucial sign. Sign 4. The body's silent battles. Infections that linger too long. For most of our lives, a small cut, a scratch, or a simple cold is no more than a passing inconvenience. The body heals. We move on, but in the final chapters of life, something begins to change. The body's once vibrant defenses grow tired. Its ability to fight, to repair, to protect, begins to fade, quietly, almost invisibly. You might first notice it with a cold that seems to linger just a little too long, or a simple urinary infection that returns again and again, no matter how many rounds of antibiotics are given. Bruises take longer to fade, small cuts heal slower, sores appear and refuse to close. The immune system, that silent army that once fought so fiercely for us, now struggles to rally its troops, and sometimes the signs are not what you might expect. An elderly loved one may not spike a fever when an infection sets in. Instead, they may simply seem more tired, more confused, more withdrawn. It can be so easy to miss. Families often think it is just part of aging, but often it is the body's quiet cry for help, and a sign that its energy is being saved for the essentials: breathing, heartbeat, presence. I remember visiting Mr. Harris, an old farmer who spent most of his life outdoors, sunburned and strong. One winter, a small scrape on his arm, barely noticeable, turned into a sore that refused to heal. The doctors tried creams, antibiotics, special dressings. Nothing seemed to help, and Mr. Harris, once so robust, simply smiled and said, "My body's tired of fixing things. It has bigger things to prepare for now." When infections become frequent, when healing slows, it is not just a medical issue. It is a signal that the body is gently winding down its battles, preparing instead for peace. As caregivers, as family, this is a time to focus less on curing and more on comforting. Keep wounds clean and dry. Offer plenty of fluids. Create a soft, soothing environment where rest is easy and uninterrupted. And most importantly, be present. Because in these quiet battles, sometimes all a person needs is to know that they are not fighting alone. And just as the body slows its healing, you may notice another shift, this time in something even more fundamental, the breath itself. Let us move gently now to the next sign. A change in the rhythm of breathing, a new, deeper message from the body. Sign 5. The breath slows down. When each breath tells a story. There is something deeply sacred about the way breath changes as life begins to come full circle. At first, the shifts are so subtle, you might not even notice them. Maybe your loved one sighs more often. Maybe their breathing becomes just a little shallower, a little slower. But over time, the rhythm of life itself begins to change. You may hear pauses between breaths, longer than you expect, long enough to make your heart catch in your throat. Then a breath returns, soft, raspy, sometimes almost silent. Sometimes breathing becomes irregular, deep, rapid breaths followed by stretches of stillness. This is known as Cheney-Stokes breathing, a natural part of the body's gentle shutting down. Other times, you may hear a faint gurgling sound as though the breath is moving through water. It is called the death rattle, a sound that can be unsettling to hear, but usually does not cause distress to the person themselves. It is simply the body's way of adjusting as muscles relax and secretions gather. I remember sitting by a woman named Ruth, a loving great-grandmother who had spent her life baking pies, tending gardens, telling stories that made you laugh until your sides hurt. In her final days, her breath came slower, softer, like the gentle rise and fall of waves at low tide. We sat in the quiet, the clock ticking, her breathing like a lullaby, a reminder that life, at its core, is rhythm. There was no fear in her breaths, no panic, only a deep, slow surrender. A letting go. When breathing changes like this, it is natural for family members to feel anxious, to want to help, to wish for the right way to make it easier. But often, the best gift we can offer is simply to be there. Sit nearby, hold a hand, whisper love. Keep the room cool and calm. Use extra pillows to help them sit up if needed. Offer small sips of water if they are still able to swallow comfortably. Understand that their body is doing exactly what it needs to do, not fighting, not suffering, but surrendering, gently, courageously, to the natural flow of life. When you listen closely, each breath tells a story of a life lived, of battles fought, of dreams chased, of love given and received. And as the breathing slows, another kind of change often begins as well, not just physical, but emotional. It is the growing distance, the quiet retreat of someone who is preparing, in their own sacred way, to say goodbye. Let us move now to this next tender sign. Sign 6. A growing distance, emotional withdrawal, and final goodbyes. There comes a point, often so subtle we hardly notice it at first, when a loved one begins to gently pull away from the world around them. It is not sudden. It is not cruel. It is quiet, like a shoreline slowly being covered by the evening tide. You might notice them speaking less, even when surrounded by people they once loved to talk with. They may sit quietly in a room full of family, watching but not joining in. Their gaze drifts, not focusing on the conversation, but resting somewhere deeper, somewhere inward. At first, it can feel confusing, even hurtful. You might wonder, are they upset? Are they sad? Am I doing something wrong? But this emotional withdrawal is rarely about others. It is the soul's gentle preparation for a journey it must take alone. As the body tires, the mind often turns inward, reviewing memories, making peace with the past, savoring the moments that mattered most. They may seem more reflective, more peaceful, or sometimes more restless, as if there are things they still need to say, things they are trying to settle inside. I remember a man named Walter, a proud World War II veteran who had always been the center of every family gathering. In his last months, he spoke less and less, preferring instead to sit by the window, watching the seasons change. One evening, his granddaughter asked if he was okay. Walter smiled, a soft, tired smile, and said, "I am just thinking about all the people I loved." It is a long, beautiful list. That growing distance is not a rejection. It is a sacred transition. It is the mind and heart releasing attachments, gently loosening their hold on the world. As caregivers, as family, our role is not to pull them back into our busy lives. It is to meet them where they are, to offer quiet companionship, to sit in shared silence, to listen if they wish to speak, and to honor the stories they still choose to tell. If they become less responsive, if they drift into long periods of stillness, know that it is not because they have stopped loving you. It is because they are making their peace, their own way, their own time. Allow them this space. Honor it. It is a final gift you can give, to love them not for what they say or do, but simply for who they are, even as they prepare to say goodbye. And as this emotional withdrawal deepens, some individuals experience moments of unexpected restlessness, a final stirring of the body and spirit as they prepare for their final journey. Let us now explore this next, often overlooked sign. Sign 7. Restless moments. Before peace, terminal restlessness. In the final stretch of life, there is sometimes a brief, almost urgent stirring, a restlessness that rises quietly, like the final gust of wind before the stillness of night. It is called terminal restlessness, and it can be one of the most difficult signs for families to witness. You might see your loved one become agitated without clear reason. They may pick at their sheets, try to get out of bed even when they are too weak to walk, pull at invisible threads in the air, or mutter words that seem to belong to another time, another place. Some may seem anxious, searching for something they cannot name. Others may call out for people long gone, or reach toward something only they can see. At first, it can feel alarming. You may want to calm them, to reason with them, to bring them back to the moment you share. But understand, this restlessness is not confusion in the ordinary sense. It is the body's natural, instinctive preparation for letting go. It is the spirit's way of gathering itself for the final journey. The mind, the body, the heart, all are working together to loosen the last ties to this world. I remember sitting with a man named Samuel, a gentle soul who spent his life as a fisherman. In his final days, he would reach his arms upward, as if casting invisible nets into a vast, unseen sea. His daughter, at first, tried to hold him still, to reassure him. But one of the hospice nurses, a wise older woman, took her hand and said, "Let him reach. He is not lost. He is just finding his way home." Those words stayed with me. And they changed the way I view these restless moments. If you see this in someone you love, know that it is not something to fear and not something to fight. It is a natural part of the process, their final work before peace. What can you do during this time? Keep the environment calm and soft. Dim the lights. Play soothing music if they enjoy it. Hold their hand if they seem comforted by touch, or simply sit nearby if they seem more at ease alone. Avoid trying to correct them or pull them back into the present. Let them go where they need to go. Let them say what they need to say, even if the words do not always make sense. Be their anchor, quiet, steady, loving, as they complete their beautiful, hard, sacred journey. Because very soon after this restlessness, there often comes a profound peace, a deep, abiding stillness that is not frightening, but tender and holy. And when that moment comes, you will know. You were there, you walked with them, you loved them all the way home. As we come to the end of our time together today, I invite you to take a deep breath and hold close everything we have shared. The body growing smaller, the deep tiredness that even sleep cannot mend, the fading of familiar faces, the battles against infections that linger too long, the slowing of breath, the emotional withdrawal, and the restless stirring just before the final peace. These are not signs to fear. They are signs to honor. They are gentle, sacred messages from the body and the soul, whispering that the journey is nearing its completion. If you see these signs in someone you love, know that it is not a failure. It is not something you must fight or fix. It is something to walk through, with tenderness, with patience, and with a heart wide open. This is the time to let go of expectations, to stop measuring days by activity or achievement, and to start measuring them by presence. A smile held just a little longer, a hand squeezed in the quiet, a story whispered by the bedside, a simple, "I love you," said not for memory, but for the soul. You do not have to be perfect. You do not have to have all the right words. You simply have to be there. Because in the end, what our loved ones need most is not more medicine, not more advice, but the steady, quiet assurance that they are not alone, that they are loved, that their life mattered. If this video touched your heart today, I would love to hear your thoughts. Maybe you have walked this path before. Maybe you are walking it now. Or maybe you are simply preparing with love and wisdom for the future. Please share your feelings in the comments below. Your stories give strength and hope to so many others in this community. And if you found value here, please consider liking this video, subscribing to our channel, and sharing it with someone who might need these gentle reminders today. Together, we can build a place where love, respect, and dignity guide every step of the journey. Thank you for spending this time with me. Until we meet again, may you walk with kindness, may you love deeply, and may you find peace, even in the hardest goodbyes.